So I wanted to follow up on a previous video where I had found this wrecked car up in Stevens Creek Canyon. A viewer had given me a tip that there was another car up here. It took me a while to find it, as I mentioned in that previous video. By the time I had identified the car, I figured the poison oak would probably have just overgrown up here. So the poison oak had shot up about a foot in a week that I'd been up there 1 week and then the following week. I would like to get back up here. It'll probably be this winter after a few frosts knocked down some of the poison oak. But I wanted to point out a few features that helped identify this vehicle. I thought I had it figured out quite early, but then I found one thing that completely changed the identification. There's not a lot to go on here. There's just the body left and the frame. So one thing to notice here is the roof line here in back is almost vertical. It comes down quite steeply, and then the start of the trunk comes out almost horizontal before it bends down. So that's one detail. Another one is the rear window is one piece here. Okay, this is the front end of the vehicle. Couple of things to notice here. One is, it's kind of hard to see here, but this is an independent front suspension. You can kind of make out the upper control arm here, and then the front spindle. And then also look at the headlights. They're a teardrop shape, but they're partially recessed into this flat part of the fender. So the fender is kind of two pieces. It's this flat part here, and then there's the wheel well portion, which is missing on the driver's side here. But if you look down below, here's that flat part of the fender, and then you've got the wheel well arch is apparently a separate piece of sheet metal, and you can see that down here. So it's a flat part, the headlights on that flat part, and then you've got the raised curved wheel well arch there. Okay, so this was my initial guess at what the vehicle was. When I first saw it, I had assumed it was maybe 1940s vintage, but it turns out this is a 1938 Chevrolet Master Deluxe. This is a two-door sedan. The body up there in the woods is a four-door sedan, but the roof line comes down here at a pretty steep angle, and then the trunk comes out nearly horizontal, so you've got a pretty sharp, almost 90-degree angle. It's just a little bigger than 90 degrees here. But look up here. Here's the headlights. So in 1938, the headlights were stuck out of the side of the radiator core support here. Yeah, here you can see a little closer. You can see how the headlight, there's daylight below it, and here's a 1939 Master Deluxe. And you can see here the headlights are on this flat part of the fender, and then you've got the front fender is raised above that flat part. This is again a 1939. The sharp angle here, one piece rear window. Now here's a 1940 Master Deluxe. You can see the license plate there. And this one, the headlights are sunk way into the flat part of the fender there. They're almost flush at the top. So the roof line is a lot more sloped, and it almost matches the trunk slopes, and it's a two-piece rear window. And then here's another 1940. You can see real clear how the headlight is recessed way into the fender, and you can see how the wheel well arch and fender are all one line here. They just come down as one curve. There's no longer a raised wheel well arch. They've just raised the inside part of the fender. My original thought was we're looking at a 1939 Master Deluxe. Yeah, so let's take a look here. This is a 1939 Chevrolet dealer brochure, and they had basically two model lines. There was the Master Deluxe and the Master 85. They were identical bodies. The main difference was, if you can see here, the front suspension, they called it a knee action or independent front suspension, control arms and coil springs, and the Master 85 had an I-beam front axle, a solid front axle. It could have been this sports sedan, and then you also had a Master Deluxe sedan, four-door. Everything was great until this picture, or this diagram here. You can see there's the independent upper control arm, lower control arm, coil springs. But look back here, leaf springs. And that's a bit of a problem, because if we go back to the original video, I put a little clip at the beginning and I mentioned that this vehicle had coil springs in the rear. You can clearly see coil springs. The springs are behind the axle. Here's the control arm, and then if we zoom out a bit, you can see the panhard or track bar, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I came over here. This is the Gemini AI on Google, and I asked it which 1939 Chevrolet sedan had coil springs in the rear, and it said none of them. They all utilized rear leaf springs. So then I asked it, well, what was the earliest Chevy four-door sedan with rear coil springs? And it said the earliest one was 1958. The Bel Air, Biscayne, and Impala models all had rear coil springs. So I asked a third question. What was the first year of any sedan that had rear coil springs? And the first year was 1938 with the Buick. They had the rear coil springs. Yeah, so the 1938 Buick was the first production vehicle with rear coil springs, and then it also had the coil spring independent front suspension. This is the 1939 dealer brochure. So there was a series 90, 80, 60, and 40, and they were all different wheelbases here. If we flip through here, here's the model 80 and 140-inch wheelbase. The thing is just really, really long. Had the spare tire in the passenger side fender, all different model 80s, and then they went to the model 60 here, 126-inch wheelbase. And then I think what we're looking at is probably a Model 41 Special. And this one, 120-inch wheelbase. So if I do get up there, I'd like to bring a tape measure or something and see if I can roughly measure the wheelbase. You can see here the Model 41 just had plain fenders. Now one thing they had is basically a sunroof option. And then they also had the option of stream boards or running boards. So the stream board was just this chrome trim. I believe the car we're looking at, the wreck, had running boards. You can see the running board brackets are still there. And there's no hole in the roof, so it didn't have the sunroof option. Yeah, I think this is what we're looking at, is a Model 41 Special Buick 8 Dynaflash. There, look at that. Coil springs, there's the control arms, and the coil spring is behind the rear axle. Or they call it the Bui-Coil spring. And then the driving thrust is taken up by the stout torque tube and the sturdy strut rods, so that they call those strut rods, or trailing arm suspension would be the name today. And then you can see here is the panhard bar or track bar coming across here. Yeah, there you go. You can see a little better here. Yeah, you can see the springs, the control arms, and then this torque tube comes up here into the middle, and then the drive shaft runs through that tube. Okay, and then here's the Buick Special. This is a 1938, and you can see they still have the headlights on the side of the radiator. This is a 1939 Special. This one for sure is the shorter wheelbase, so this is a Model 41 Special. Four-door. You can see how the headlights are recessed into the fender, but they're still a wheel well arch. And then here's another 39 from the side. You can see the sharp angle. It's basically the same body as the Chevy. And here you can see how the hood pivots right there. And then here's a 1940 Buick Special, and you can see the headlights are all the way down flush to the fender, and the fender rolls out here in a smooth curve from the hood over to the fender. It doesn't go up. So the Chevy and Buick bodies were essentially the same. So yeah, I think what we're looking at here is a 1939 Model 41 Special. Yeah, so my initial guess was a Chevy. It turned out to be a Buick, so still General Motors, but different division, and I was off a few years in the model year. But yeah, so anyway, just wanted to wrap up that video. I'd like to get back up there and maybe take a tape measure up there and look at this wrecked car, because I should be able to get a wheelbase, because the rear axle is there and the front is there. And then I'd also like to get a better look at the underside, look at that frame and the control arms, because that's all still there. So that would be kind of interesting, but that'll probably be this coming winter after the poison oak dies back and it gives you a fighting chance to get up there. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that follow-up on this wrecked car. This is definitely the oldest one I've found so far, and this is number 5. Yeah, so while I was trying to identify this car, I've actually found 2 more, and so I'll be doing videos on those. One of them I figured out, and the other one I need to get close enough to actually see if there's any details on it. It's quite a ways off the road and I can't get down to it. So anyway, stay tuned for those videos. They should be coming up here shortly, and if you like that, give the video a thumbs up, and as always, thanks for watching.